ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So, welcome to the second class on Nyaya philosophy. It is good that we have about 23 computers on now, because last time I was fearing that since it was so heavy, people were finding it so heavy, whether anybody would come or not. So that's a good sign. Unfortunately, today's class will be heavier. But the good news is that it may be the heaviest. After this, it will slowly become easier. But today's will be exclusively on epistemology, how we know. So it is going to be a little heavy. Yeah. Anyway, before we start the philosophy class, let us just recount that yesterday, according to the Indian calendar, we had Kali Puja and Diwali also. So I wish you all a happy Kali Puja and Diwali. We could not have a class on Mother Kali naturally because it will break the continuity. We've already had 3 talks on the Divine Mother, one on Durga Puja and 2 on Chandi. So I will try to make it up with a song at the end if there is time. So, and some beautiful pictures are there of Dakshineshwar also, which I want to show you. Dakshineshwar was all lighted up during the Kali Puja days, I think maybe more than one day. So that is a wonderful lighting, and some people sent me photographs. So let's start today by a little recapitulation. I will just share share what we have done, the chart which shows what we had discussed last time. Last time we had discussed true or valid knowledge and non-valid knowledge. We have discussed knowledge in general. See, this if we consider it, this philosophy, if we consider it as a fascinating journey towards the answer to the question how we know, then it should not sound so heavy. So just think that we will get the answer to this basic question: what is knowledge and how we know? See, isn't it surprising that all our dealings with the world are based on the knowledge we gain? Still, if we are asked, we actually do not know how we gain this knowledge. So, shouldn't we think deeply over that? I think we should. So, last time, as you know, we had discussed valid knowledge prama as well as non-valid knowledge or aprama. So, valid knowledge is definite and certain, like you see in the chart, and a faithful and unerring presentation of the object. There are 4 types of valid knowledge accepted by Nyaya: perception, inference, comparison, and testimony. Today we will try to discuss the first 2, perception and inference. And last time we had discussed in detail non-valid knowledge or aprama. Non-valid knowledge is uncertain and not true to the nature of its object. So if we see a snake in a rope, it is non-valid knowledge, because our knowledge tells us that there is a snake there, but the actual object there is a rope. And there are 4 types of non-valid knowledge which we have discussed last time. memory, doubt, error, and tarka or hypothetical argument. So this is what we have discussed last time. Now let us start with valid knowledge, the types of valid knowledge. So first and the most important because we employ this method of knowledge or pramana innumerable times every day of our life. So what is the first type of pramana or valid knowledge? In the list you have seen, it is perception. Okay, so let us first define perception. What is perception? So in logic, perception is to be regarded as a form of true cognition that we have already seen. And the Naiyayikas means those who follow the Nyaya philosophy, define perception as a definite cognition which is produced by sense-object contact and is true or unerring. So this is the definition of perception. One, it is definite cognition. There is no doubt in that. And it is produced by our senses and the object. The contact between them produces perception. Like my eyes are the sense organ and they are seeing the object, this computer in front of me. So when there is a contact between my eye and this computer, I say that I am perceiving this computer. So it is a case of perception. And I should not have any doubt. I don't have any doubt whether this is a computer or not. So when knowledge is produced in this way, by the contact of our organs and the object, and there is no doubt about that knowledge, it is valid knowledge, it is called perception. So the perception of everything before me, the table, the computer, etc., is due to the contact of my eyes with them, with those objects, and I am definite that this object is a table, this object is a computer, etc. But suppose I am seeing a distant figure in the darkness. Suppose I am seeing a figure which is far away from me and I have doubts whether it is a man or a lamppost. Suppose I cannot see properly. Then, since it is a doubtful cognition, it cannot be called true perception. And if the perception is wrong, for example, if I see a snake in a rope, then it is definitely false. So it is not valid perception. This is the definition of perception as cognition due to the stimulation of our sense organs by the perceived objects. This, in short, is the definition of perception. But there is an exception to this. What is the exception? See, when I am happy, I know that I am happy. When I am sad, I know that I am sad. This is not something, this knowledge is not something which is produced by the contact of my sense organ with any object. So this is called, for example, the feeling of pleasure and pain. When we are aware of that, there is no outside, there is no object, and there is no contact of any of my senses with the object. But still, we have absolute definite knowledge that I am happy. There is no doubt about that. Or that I am sad. So what is that kind of perception? That kind of perception is called internal perception. And external perception is when our sense organs come in contact with some external object. So the definition that perception is the knowledge produced when my sense organs come in contact with object, this definition does not hold good when the perception is internal perception. Okay, that is why perception also is defined as direct cognition. Because even when we are perceiving our feelings, when we are perceiving that we are happy or sad, the cognition is direct. There is no intermediate something through which we know that we are happy or sad. Nobody needs to tell us, oh, you are happy. We know ourselves. So directly we perceive the states of our mind, happiness or sorrow. So this can be a very good definition of perception because it holds good for internal perception as well as external perception. What is that definition? Direct cognition. Perception is direct cognition. When we know something directly, not through any intermediate source. So that is why we should know that one of the very good definition of perception will be direct cognition. Whether it can be external or internal. Okay. So this is as regards the definition of perception. Now we have to see the types of perception. There are many types of perception. So now we come to classifying perception. Perception we have to classify by dividing it into two sorts. One is ordinary and extraordinary. I will just show you a chart again so that it is easier to comprehend. So this chart you can see, as we have seen that perception is can be external or internal. Now both external and internal perception fall under ordinary perception. There is another kind of perception which you can see, which is extraordinary. So let us discuss what this extraordinary perception is like. So whether a perception is ordinary or extraordinary depends on the way in which our senses come in contact with their objects. Ordinary perception we have when there is the usual sense contact with objects presented to our senses. But in extraordinary perception, the object is such as is not ordinarily present to the senses, but is conveyed to the senses in some unnatural form. Just one or two examples will make it clear. See, when we say that all men are mortal, okay, this statement you all know. All men are mortal. So this gives us the knowledge that mortality is true of all men. Actually, all human beings. All human beings are mortal. Okay, so we know that mortality is true not of this person or that person only, but of all persons or living beings in the past, present and future. So it means that mortality is true of the class of men, class of human beings. Just for the sake of discussion, we will say men. But the question is, how do we know the whole class of men or human beings? This is a knowledge we know. When we say that all men are mortal, we gain a knowledge that nobody is immortal in this world. So this is a knowledge. But how do we know the whole class of men? We have not seen all the men in the world, in the past, present or future. Nobody has seen that. But still we gain this knowledge. So how did this knowledge come? This is called extraordinary perception, because we cannot know it by ordinary perception, since all human beings cannot be physically present to our senses. Yet somehow we know that all men are mortal. So the Naiyayikas explain this knowledge of the class of men. What is that class? Manhood. We know manhood. Okay. So this class essence of the universal manhood. So see, when I perceive a man, I do perceive the manhood in him. Otherwise, I cannot directly recognize him as a man. So this direct knowledge or perception of the universal manhood is the medium through which I perceive all men or the class of men. So to perceive manhood is to perceive all men so far as they are possessed of the universal manhood. So when we are perceiving manhood, it is not something which is directly presented to the eyes. That is why this perception of class is known as extraordinary perception. Like when we see 4 kinds of tables, all 4 tables have this quality, tableness. Now this tableness is not something which we see through our eyes, but still we know that all four are tables. They are not something else. So this perception of class is the first type of extraordinary perception which you can see in the list. Perception of class, all men are mortal. So perception of manhood. So when we perceive manhood, it is an extraordinary perception. This is the first type of extraordinary perception. Now let us come to the second class of extraordinary perception. See, when we see a photograph of some place, suppose it is full of ice and snow and all that, what do we say? Oh, this place looks so cold. We often say this kind of thing. When we see a stone, some kind of stone, we say this stone looks so hard. Now, the coldness of ice or snow and the hardness of a stone, we cannot perceive with our eyes. Actually, to know that snow is cold, we have to touch snow. To know that a stone is hard, we have to touch that stone. But even without doing that, sometimes we say, when we see snow and ice and all, we see that this place looks so cold. So this is also a kind of extraordinary perception which is born of knowledge. What knowledge? That since snow is cold, a place covered with snow will also be cold. So this you can see in number 2, the extraordinary perception which is born of knowledge. For example, we say that this stone looks hard. So without touching it, actually we cannot know. But sometimes just by seeing we say. So this is also kind of extraordinary perception which is born of knowledge. And the third kind of extraordinary perception is that which is born of yoga by a special power that we all know. All the saints and sages, they possess this power. For example, Swamiji had predicted so many things about the world. Before the World War started, he said that Europe may blow up and all that. So all these perceptions, all this knowledge which he had was born of a special power of yoga that ordinary people can never have. So that is the third kind of perception which you can see in the list, which is born of yoga. So ordinary perception, we have seen that it is external. For example, when we see a table or chair with our eyes, then it is internal when we know that I am happy or I am sad. An extraordinary perception is of three kinds: perception of class, then perception which is born of knowledge, and perception which is born of yoga. Mind you, this is all according to Nyaya. Advaita Vedanta does not admit this perception of class and perception born of knowledge, but it admits perception, extraordinary perception born of yoga. So when we discuss any philosophy, we should remember that all these which we are telling is according to the Nyaya philosophy. The Nyaya philosophy says that extraordinary perception is of three kinds: perception of class, perception of knowledge, and perception born of yoga. But Advaita Vedanta does not accept the first two. It accepts the extraordinary perception born of yoga. So this is the kinds of perception we are seeing. Now let us come to the three modes of perception. This is very simple. We all know it is our everyday experience. So first is indeterminate, second is determinate, and the third is memory. So it is very simple because every day we experience this. First is indeterminate. Suppose we see an object, but we see it just as an existent thing without an explicit recognition and characterization of it at this or that kind of thing. Say when we enter a room, the light is not good. We see something round on a table. So we just see as an object. We do not know what it is. Then when we put on the light, we see that it is an orange. Then we know that yes, this object is an orange. So first of all, what happened? First of all, we did not know, we did not have an idea what that object was, what its characteristics were. Okay, that type of perception is called indeterminate perception, which is a simple perception of an object without any judgment of it as this or that kind of thing. So we all know, we all experience that in the darkness when we see something. First of all, we just see it as an object. That perception is called indeterminate perception. And the second is when we definitely know that yes, this object is an orange. We know definitely. That is determinate perception. When we not only cognize the existence of the orange as such, but also recognize or mentally or verbally assert what type of object it is. So it is very simple. Indeterminate and determinate. Indeterminate when we only see the object without recognizing what actually it is, and determinate is when we know what object is that, what its character is. And the third is simple recognition or smriti. So we all know when we see a man on one day, then another next day we see the same man. Then how we gain the knowledge? We say that this is the same man I saw yesterday. Don't we say that? So we all know this smriti, we are all familiar with that. So this is the classification of perception which you have seen in the chart. So extraordinary perception we have seen, and the three modes of perception we have seen, that indeterminate, determinate, and memory. So this is all about the first pramana or perception. Now let us come to the second pramana or inference. Now see, after perception comes inference or anumana. Anumana, we all know, those who are familiar with Indian languages, it is in Hindi also, in Bengali also, in Sanskrit also. So this word for inference, anumana, this anumana is made up of two words, anu plus mana. Anu means after and mana means knowledge. So that knowledge which comes after some other knowledge is anumana. Okay, the knowledge which we gain with the help of another knowledge is anumana. A little example which will make it clear. The favorite example of anumana or inference is, the hill is fiery. Now we see a hill at a distance. We see some smoke coming out. We don't see the fire with our eyes. We just see some smoke. So what do we say? That since there is smoke coming out, there has to be a fire there. Okay. Now how did we gain this knowledge about the fire present in the hill? We did not see the fire directly. We saw the smoke. And we know that wherever there is smoke, there has to be fire. So this knowledge that wherever there is smoke, there is fire, this knowledge led to another knowledge that there is fire on the hill. Is it not? So one type of knowledge is leading to another type of knowledge. That is called inference. A few examples will make it absolutely clear. Like we say, Devadatta is mortal because he is a human being and all human beings are mortal. Okay. We are making a statement. Devadatta is mortal. He will die someday. But we have not seen him die. Okay. But we know that all human beings are mortal. So this knowledge that all human beings are mortal also gives us the knowledge that Devadatta is mortal. So one knowledge is leading to another knowledge. So anumana, the knowledge which comes after another knowledge, is therefore called anumana. So in the first example of the smoke and fire on the hill, in that example, we pass from the perception of the smoke in the hill to the knowledge of the existence of the fire in it. How? Because we know that there is a universal relation between smoke and fire. So this is like last time Shashiji was telling, the famous saying, Yatra yatra dhuma tatra tatra vanhi. Dhuma means smoke, vanhi means fire. Wherever there is fire, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. So this we know. This is called invariable concomitance or vyapti. So all those who are familiar with any Indian languages are familiar with this term vyapti. Something is vyapta in something else means it pervades something. Now suppose we have a sponge. We soak that sponge in water. Then what will we say? That sponge is pervaded by water. This pervasion is called vyapti. Okay. So when we say that wherever there is smoke, there is fire, fire is actually, there is a vyapti between smoke and fire, because one cannot exist without the other. So this relation of the vyapti between smoke and fire leads us to the knowledge that the hill is on fire even without seeing the fire, just by seeing the smoke. Now I think it is very simple. So this kind of knowledge which arises out of another kind of knowledge is anumana. That is the thing. So what are the steps? Now when we say Devadatta is mortal, okay, so what are the steps through which we arrive at this knowledge? First we say Devadatta is mortal. Second, we say because he is a human being. Third, we say all human beings are mortal. For example, Socrates, Kant, Hegel, all were mortal. Then we say Devadatta is also a human being. Then finally we arrive at the conclusion that Devadatta is also mortal. So again I will say, first statement is Devadatta is mortal. Second, why? Because Devadatta is a human being. Third, all human beings are mortal, we all know. And Devadatta is also a human being. So fifth is, therefore Devadatta is also mortal. This is the whole process of inferential knowledge. So as you can see, it is not very difficult. Just we have to understand it step by step. That's all. So today we will end here before all of you leave with a headache. So first is perception. We have seen external perception, internal perception, and the types of perception we have seen, whether it is extraordinary or ordinary or smriti. And then we have also seen what is inference. The second pramana, inference. This is inference, that when we gain some knowledge via another knowledge. So when we have the knowledge that there is a vyapti, there is an invariable concomitance between smoke and fire, then even without seeing the fire, we know that there is fire on the hill because there is smoke. That's all. See, when we see someone with a morose look, like this he is there, we say what? Oh, he is very sad. How do we know that? We don't know. We have not perceived his sadness. But we know that any person with a glum look like that is generally sad. So that knowledge tells us that that person is also sad. So we employ this every day, but we rarely examine this pramana in detail. That is the thing. So only two pramanas are left in Nyaya, which we will deal with later. Those can be dealt with very short, it is very simple. That is comparison and verbal testimony. So we can leave that for the next time. Enough of Nyaya for one day, I think. So this much for today. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. So before we end, we can have a song, but before that, I will show you some beautiful photographs of Dakshineshwar which was lighted up. So first is Bhavatarini or Mother Kali, how beautifully she was decorated yesterday. I will just share this photo. You can see the photo, and zooming you can see how beautiful it looks. Mother Kali on Kali Puja day. And then we come to the next photo, which is Dakshineshwar lighted up very beautifully. Can you see Dakshineshwar? Yeah, you can see, no? So see the beautiful lighting, and zooming we can see more clearly. So absolutely brilliant. Then we come to the next photo, which is another very beautiful one. This is at night. So see how beautiful it looks from far. Now we come to the outer temple. There is a light and sound show. So here you can see this is the Nath Mandir, or the temple which is outside the main temple. Now see there is an image of Krishna playing the flute. You can see that in the black. Yeah. So this is how they had a light and sound program. So this one building, see how many different types of lights were there. See this. See the eyes of Mother Kali. This is all produced through light. It is the same building. See, again a different kind of light. See this one, so beautiful. It is the same building. This was where, in Gospel, if you have read, that once when Master Mashai, after meeting Sri Ramakrishna, he was going away to his home. Sri Ramakrishna had told him that he will go to devotee's house and Master Mashai also could come. So Master Mashai suddenly thought when going out that maybe they would not allow him. He came back to ask Sri Ramakrishna. Then he says that Sri Ramakrishna was walking here at that time. In that Nath Mandir, Sri Ramakrishna was walking. So this is the place. So see another view. You can see the image of Mother Kali on the walls. And another view. And another view. There on the left you can see the main temple. And see how beautiful it looks. This is a green one. And you can see in the center Sri Ramakrishna's photograph in the walls of the Nath Mandir. See another one. All the different symbols of different religions, Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrianism and Hinduism, and in the midst of that Sri Ramakrishna. Here another one where you can see the main temple also and the Nath Mandir also. So these were the photos I wanted to show you. So beautiful it looks. Now, because Kali Puja was there, we can have a small song on Divine Mother. Now, this song is a very special song because this was the song, the first song on Divine Mother, which Sri Ramakrishna had taught to Naren or Swami Vivekananda. This is that song. So a very special song. It was the first song which on Divine Mother which Sri Ramakrishna had taught Naren or Swamiji. আমি জানি গো দীন দয়াময়ী, আমি জানি গো দীন দয়াময়ী, তুমি দুর্গমেতে দুঃখ হরা, আমার মা তুমি তারা। জলে তুমি স্থলে, তুমি আদ্য মূলে গো মা, তুমি জলে তুমি স্থলে, তুমি আদ্য মূলে গো মা, আছো সর্ব ঘটে অক্ষপুটে, আছো সর্ব ঘটে অক্ষপুটে, সাকার তোমার নিরাকারা আমার মাতঙ্গী তারা আমার মাতঙ্গী তারা তুমি সন্ধ্যা তুমি গায়ত্রী তুমি জগদ্ধাত্রী গো মা তুমি সন্ধ্যা তুমি গায়ত্রী তুমি জগদ্ধাত্রী গো মা অকুলের ত্রাণ কর্ত্রী অকুলের ত্রাণ কর্ত্রী সদা শিবের মনোহরা আমার মাতঙ্গী তারা আমার মাতঙ্গী তারা তুমি ত্রিগুণ ধরা পরাত পরা আমার মাতঙ্গী তারা আমি জানি গো দীন দয়াময়ী আমি জানি গো দীন দয়াময়ী তুমি দুর্গমেতে দুঃখ হরা আমার মা